I keep religion and politics out of everything that I write, and I use what I like to call common sense. Here's what happened in this particular event. What can we learn from this particular action that this person took, and how can we use it to better our own lives? So in keeping those two elements out of my work, I think is one of the reasons why people gravitate to it, because I'm not preaching at you.
Hi friends, this is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. So today we have with us popular TV guest, author, and marketing strategist Paul Lloyd Hemphill, who recently converted one of his books to video as a leadership and character development program for middle and high schools, companies, and organizations across America. And all of them are based on the famous Civil War battle, the Battle of Gettysburg. He has written 5 books and an accomplished videographer and has produced 3 audiobooks. He also received the coveted Bronze Star Medal and the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry while in the U.S. Army. So first, Paul, thank you for joining me and thank you for your service.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Thank you for having me as your guest today. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Of course, yeah. You're pretty popular and famous, so I'm excited to have a famous TV host on my podcast. And so, Paul, can you tell us a bit about your most recent book, Inspiration for Teens? Why did you write it? Who is it for? And what is the message that you're trying to convey?
Great question. I really appreciate you asking it. It all started several years ago when my kids were in high school, and I would ask them one simple question every 6 months. I would ask them, so how do you like history? The answer was always the same. Well, it's boring, Dad. Why do you keep asking the question? And so one day I decided, out of frustration, to get in my car, drive down to the local library. And I went in and asked the librarian, I would guess the dumbest question she had heard in her career. And I said to her, is there any book here in the library that would show a teenager why history is interesting? And she said, what, are you crazy? Of course not. Wow. So I had what I call my Damascus moment.
Oh, what's a Damascus moment?
Yeah.
Since I'm from the Middle East, so I'm interested in Damascus. So what is your Damascus?
Well, the Damascus moment, it came from the moment when St. Paul, who at the time was called Saul, was persecuting Christians. And while he was on his horse one day, he was struck off his horse by this vision from God, telling him that he was designated now to basically preach the gospel. And I'm really being simplistic with this description. And so he went on a singular mission for the rest of his life, is to convert people to Christianity. So my mission then is to convert or to change the minds of people as to how they view history. Now, most people view history as something that is boring, and in order to sound intelligent, they often repeat this crazy, what I call the dumbest statement that we've all repeated ourselves from time to time, and that is those who do not study history are condemned to repeat it. Well, the reason why that's one of the dumbest statements ever made, because if we all had PhDs in world history and we were just all brilliant about whatever happened in our past, 3 things would continue to happen because of our human nature. 1, we would continue to make war on each other. We would continue to watch the fall and corruption of politicians in our governments. And 3, we would continue to witness slavery across the world. We just call it by a different name now. We call it child trafficking. So what I like to say is that we need to interrupt the way history is being taught. And I like to call myself a pattern interrupter. In other words, you interrupt a pattern that's not working with something that will work. And that's what I've created with my book. And what's interesting about the book was that it was originally titled Why You're Already a Leader. Now, that was selling pretty well with management types, but it wasn't a bestseller. And then I had 2 teenage girls from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who was talking to one of my subscribers who bought the book. And he said, I think you 2 girls ought to read this and you might find it interesting. Well, they did. They came back to him and said, this book is really, really good. There's only one problem with it. He said, what's that? And they said, the title is terrible. and so I thought, wow, I'm trying to reach the kids. And so what title should I use?
Okay.
And so he came back 2 days later and said, I spoke to the girls and they said that inspiration for teens would be ideal. Bam, I went with it. I changed the title of the book. I changed the book cover, and it became almost a bestseller overnight. It was amazing how it worked.
I know. I love the title. What was the first title?
The first title was Why You're Already a Leader. Now, the book is still available. It's just that in the content is exactly the same, but I changed the cover. They call it repurposing. Right?
Okay. Rebranding.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
and so what's happened is that the parents are buying the book. The parents are writing the reviews. I don't know if the kids are reading it. I don't know if they're really engaged in it. But I do know that kids prefer video over any other vehicle for learning.
True.
And I decided one day that if I'm not where the kids are, which is this little machine right here,
yeah,
they're never going to read or see anything that I do. And so I converted the book over to video, and I call it the America's 52 Stories. There's actually 88 stories in the book, but I decided to go with 52 so that if you subscribe to the series, you would get one per week for a year. It's kind of a marketing thing. And so, anyway, what happens is, and because I'm very flexible and open to suggestions as to how this program ought to work, I'll give you an indication of how I put my ego on the shelf when it comes to making this thing work. I was doing a Zoom call with a school in Norman, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And it was an 8th grade class. And it was really engaging. We were all having a lot of fun talking about the book, the contents, and all of that. And really at the end of the conversation, the most dramatic thing happened in how I went forward with my videos. This young girl, she was from India. She walks up to the microphone and she says, Mr. Hemphill, I have a suggestion. I don't know if you're going to like this or not. And of course, my ears are wide open, right? And so she says, I really like the stories and I really like the life lessons you give us and all of that. But if you really want the kids to remember what it is that you're saying and what you're doing, I think maybe you ought to ask some questions at the end of your videos so that you get the students to think of how they relate to the story you just told. Whoa!
Yeah.
That was huge. And so I thanked her tremendously.
It's a good suggestion. It's like you're summarizing it. Yeah.
Oh, it was great. It was great. It was great, And if I were, I have a video, for example, on Robert E. Lee, and it was about a terrible decision he had made, and he went to the people that were responsible for initiating and implementing his decision. And he apologized to them. He said, this was all my fault. I shouldn't have done this, but I did it, and I'm taking the responsibility for it. And so the question I asked at the end of that video is, have you ever taken the blame for your mistakes? And another question would be, if you took the blame for your mistakes, what kind of response did you get? If you didn't take responsibility for your mistakes, what kind of response did you get there? So it was really making the student think about the value of being honest, because what happened with this man was that his credibility skyrocketed at the moment he admitted to his subordinates that it wasn't their fault, it was his. And so you gain more credibility by being honest, you see? And so the question I ask history teachers is, what kind of a lesson did Robert E. Lee teach an 8th grader about the value of honesty? Have you ever taught that lesson before? No. Okay, so teachers don't know how to make history relevant. And the point of making history relevant in this case is that you tell stories, because stories is what emotionally connects us to the facts that are being presented. And so when we are emotionally connected, we remember things more. And as a result, in my case, I make the lessons valuable so that the kids can learn what it is that they are capable of right now. Because they've got talents they don't know that they have. They're not taught at their schools about the talents that they already possess, that they could activate right now. But that's what they get from my book and from my videos. Was that a short enough answer to your question?
It is. Yeah. I mean, I love that. I mean, I completely agree that in order to send a message, you have to tell a story. And this is what people are going to remember. They might not remember anything, but they're going to remember, the story that you told. Which is fascinating. So this takes me to the question of your publishing journey. How are you publishing your books? Do you have an agent? Are you self-publishing? How did you go from being a marketing executive after you came back from the war to publishing? If you can just take us.
Yeah, that's a great question. I got into marketing. I started out in the broadcasting business back in the 1970s.
Okay.
And I was writing 60-second and 30-second commercials. I wrote thousands of them over a 10-year period. And that was a result of my philosophical training that I had in college. And a lot of people say, well, how do you make the leap from majoring in philosophy to writing commercials? And it's very simple. When I was studying Greek philosophers like Aristotle, you have to remember that back in those days, they didn't have barrels of ink that they could use. There was no staples around anywhere, no copy machines, okay? So when they would write something down on a piece of what was called papyrus, okay, wasn't paper, okay, very fragile stuff.
Yeah.
They had to be careful about every single word that they were going to write down. It was critically important that every word have weight to it, so that it could be easily understood.
Okay.
So with that training, I was able to write these commercials, and I could write a 30-second commercial about a guy who's been in business for 30 years and have customers show up at his place of business. Okay. Or I had one author, a Lincoln scholar, who reviewed my book, and he said to me, and it's somewhere here in the book. He said to me, I can write anything with 4,000 words, but to do it with 400 words takes a lot of talent. And I felt very, very honored to have him say that. But that's really important. I'd like to keep things simple. And I think that has been the advantage of my philosophy training, is to be able to understand things simply, and as a result to be able to communicate. And the other part of that philosophical training is to be able to perceive things that other people don't see. Let me give you an example. In the fall period of the year, where the leaves are changing here in New England, the beautiful colors. Someone will be a guest at my house, and what I'll do is I'll take them over to one of my windows and have them look outside to see the beautiful colors and all of that. And I only ask them one question. I said, "What do you see?" And the answer is always the same with every guest. "Oh, I see the beautiful trees. The colors are magnificent. It's a wonderful time of year, isn't it? Blah, 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 blah." No one ever says the answer that I'm looking for. And the answer is, "I see the window." Now, to most people, they would say, "Well, that sounds kind of dumb." And I said, "Wait a minute. Had it not been for the window, you would not have been able to enjoy the beauty of God's creation."
Yeah.
Okay? And so that's the perspective I'd like to take with everything that I approach, even American history. Because I don't look at American history as something that needs to be remembered so much as something that can be a teaching tool for our kids to become better people. If they become better people, they can become better citizens. And if they become better citizens, what do we have? A stronger country. So my whole mission is summarized very simply, and that is to help our kids believe in themselves and their country. That's it for me.
And but how did you manage to publish your books?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should learn to answer questions.
I know, it's fine. No, what you said was fascinating, but I just want to know how you took these ideas into print.
Yeah, I really couldn't. I'm a person of very little patience, by the way, so I couldn't go to a publisher and wait, for 3 years to get the book published and know that the book was going to be denied by maybe 100 publishers and all that. I had no time for that. That's when self-publishing became very popular. So I thought, okay, I'm going to investigate, see how that works.
Okay.
So I taught myself everything that you could possibly teach yourself about self-publishing so that when I went to publish the book, it looked like a very professionally produced and written book, not something that something that is obviously not professional looking. And we've seen books like that, and they don't sell very well, right?
Yeah. So how did you do that? So if you can walk us through the steps.
Yeah. So what I did was I went to the local library and I collected the last 10 bestsellers.
Okay.
I took them home and I looked through the beginning of each of the books and in the inside, of course, to see how the format of those books were set up.
Okay.
And there was a common thread through each one of those books showing you exactly what you had to do, how the page had to look, what font you had to use, all of that. So what I did is that I successfully copied, well, not plagiarized, but I successfully copied the formula to.
Can you share with us the formula, or is that top secret, like the Kentucky Fried Chicken?
No. The formula is right behind you. You just take one of those books that you have behind you, a book that looks really good, that's well printed and well, but the bestsellers are what you want to look at. Okay.
Okay.
And see how those books are set up, and just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to set my book up the same way this guy did. And you're off to the races. You're going to be.
So how would you find out the font? Usually they write the font in the beginning, right? Like, how would you know which font they used and all of that?
Well, you'd have to go on something like Microsoft Word, and they'll give you a whole list of fonts, and you can find the font that looks like the one you're looking for. Or you can go on Google and just simply say,
and ask.
What's the most common font that publishers use for their books? I mean, it's all there.
What about the cover design? Because the cover is really nice.
Oh, well, that's a really tricky part of the whole process. You want a cover that's really going to communicate what your book does, okay? And the title has to be really large so that it can be seen from a distance. So when I do book signings, I'll have my book standing up like this in front of me so that people who are feeling intimidated about coming up and talking to me, they can see from a distance exactly what this book title is. And of course, below are teenagers on their cell phones. All right. Either reading my book or watching the videos. So and of course the color has to be just right. I mean, I could have done this in gray. I could have done this in red. I went with blue because, according to research, blue seems to be the more popular cover or color, I should say, with women. And I knew that my market for the book was going to be not teenagers, but mothers who wanted something for their kids. I just remember something really sad that happened in one of my book signings one day. I had this very well-dressed couple walked up to my desk, my table, and she said, "I got to buy this book." She looked at her husband and said, "We got to get this book." Now I'm saying to myself, they don't know anything about the book. They haven't read it. So I said to the lady, I said, "Why would you want to buy the book?" Now that's a question you'd never ask. I mean, you're in a sales situation and you don't ask why people want to buy your book. That's a dumb question, right? But I had to ask. And her answer just floored me. She said, "Well, my husband and I are very successful business people. We have our own businesses, and we don't really have time to talk to our kids, and so we need something to inspire them." Well, I bit my tongue, and I thought I was going to say to her, "Why don't one of you quit your job and stay home?" and so that wasn't going to work. So I successfully bit my tongue and sold the book. and so there's but the videos are really the popular item as a result of the book, because they're easy to watch and to be engaged in. And my subscribers get one video each week on a Wednesday afternoon. And why just one video? Well, because the questions at the end of each video are not going to be answered immediately. If you ask a teenager a question about something that they had just watched, and the first answer you're going to get is, "I don't know." and so the parent is encouraged by me when they get these videos. By the way, whatever questions your student or your son or daughter is going to answer, you have to commit to answering that question as well.
Okay.
Because what you want to do is that you want to learn something about your kids that you never learned before, and they're going to learn something about you that they didn't know before.
Yeah.
And the unintended consequence of my videos has been a bonding of the child and the parent that they never anticipated. I didn't anticipate it, but I got feedback from my subscribers saying, "Hey, this is pretty cool stuff."
Yeah.
And the kids think that history is pretty cool because the focus is all on them. It's not on the historical fact that was presented in the video.
So I want to go back to the book design. Did you design it yourself?
No. I had a professional designer do it.
And so you used KDP to publish the book?
I used a printer out of a town in northern Massachusetts. He had a pretty good business going, and I looked at sample products that he had produced, and I thought, wow, this guy knows how to publish a book. It really looks nice. And so I hired him to print it for me.
So you didn't use Amazon?
Oh, no, I didn't. And Amazon is a vehicle that for any writer, you have to be on Amazon. I mean, you may not like Amazon. I'm not crazy about Amazon, but they do fulfill a function, and that function is a marketing function, which is very valuable to any author. If you're going to have a book, you have to be on Amazon. It's that simple.
And how is the book doing now? Like, and you were the marketing expert, right?
Yeah.
So how are you marketing it, and where is the success? Like, what is your top secret to success when it comes to marketing books?
Well, I think the secret is having a good title, having a well-designed cover, because people will judge your book by its cover. There's no way getting around it. And right now, the book is selling more as a PDF file, as a what do you call a ebook on Amazon, and in its category right now, it's ranked number 12. Now, it always stays in the top 20. I say 20 because it's been in the top 10 for the last 3-4 months. And then there'll be a month where it'll go down to number 2. And then the following week, it'll go to number 1 and then back up to number 7. I mean, it's just all over the place because Amazon changes its rankings by the hour, not by the day or the month. So today it's number 12. It's been number 12, I think, for the last 4 or 5 days. It was number 9, I think, a week ago or something like that. But it'll probably go back down or up, I should say, to number 7 or 8, a week from now. You never know. So the ebook is doing really well. The paperback, I think the problem that I'm having with the paperback right now is because more than 60% of the U.S. population is living paycheck to paycheck, and they're not buying things that they really perceive they don't have an immediate need for. Mm-hmm. And so I get that. And I think this is the longest period I used to send out my paperback 2 or 3 copies a week. I haven't sent out a single paperback probably in the last 2 months. Mm. So I think people are really sensitive about what it is they're spending their money on. They're spending it more on, I think, necessities than anything that's is a luxury. But my videos are selling fairly well. You can subscribe to the videos, and I think parents are finding the videos a little bit more engaging than the book, because the book can only be read by one person at a time, whereas the videos can be watched by 20 people at a time, right?
True. And how do parents find out about you and your work? Where are you on? Are you online? Are you Are you on Instagram? Where? How do they how do you market yourself to the parents?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on X, otherwise known as Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm on Rumble. I'm on YouTube. I'm pretty much all over the place. I'm not terribly active on all of these particular media because, again, I work alone. I've got videos I've got to create myself. I just haven't the time to concentrate on being on social media, 4 hours, 5 hours a day. I just don't.
Yeah.
And besides, it's boring. I can't. I'm not a social marketing guy that needs to take the time to do all that. What I'm hoping for, realistically, is for interviews such as yours, which are so valuable, that will get the word out so that people will say, "Hey, we got to talk to this guy."
Yeah.
And most of my customers, I believe, are homeschool parents. Believe it or not, the subscribers that I have are all over the country, but 72% of my subscribers are from one state.
Which state?
California.
Oh, wow. Why?
I don't know how to explain that, but homeschool parents in California, I guess, are really sensitive about what their kids are being taught, and they want something that's uplifting, that's inspiring for their kids. And that's how they look at my video program.
Oh, wow. So what has been the most successful marketing avenue for your book? Is it the podcast? Is it where are you getting, the most attention you feel after what?
I would say probably Amazon, when people are typing in their keywords and they're looking for something that's inspiring for their kids, for teenagers, or whatever, my book comes up
Okay.
as one of the choices. And of course, I don't mind being amongst a whole bunch of choices that come to the screen. But again, the title is what is the grabber.
Yeah, it is.
And if there were a secondary source, it would be difficult for me to tie down a secondary source. I'd have to say it'd be a combination of a bunch of social media stuff that I have time to put in. And I think my biggest problem has always been consistency. They say in marketing, you got to be consistent. I know that, but I haven't the time to be consistent. And so it forces me to think that maybe I should restrict my social media time to maybe one or two avenues instead of being spread out to 10 and not being effective with 10, but I could be more effective if I were concentrating on maybe let's say 2.
Yeah.
Okay. I get a lot of response from Truth Social, which is a new medium that's used by people who follow Donald Trump, because and the irony here is that there's nothing political or religious that's insinuated in my book. I keep religion and politics out of everything that I write, and I use what I like to call common sense. Here's what happened in this particular event. What can we learn from this particular action that this person took, and how can we use it to better our own lives? So in keeping those two elements out of my work, I think is one of the reasons why people gravitate to it, because I'm not preaching at you. You take it as it comes. I tell you in advance. All of this stuff is strictly my opinion. And if you have anything that you think you would like to add to it, please let me know. I rarely hear from anybody who says, you should add this to your. They don't do that. I guess people just don't have the time, and they just figure that the author has taken the time. That's the reason why he wrote this book, produced these videos, and I'm okay with that. So that's where we are.
Oh, wow. It's interesting. I didn't even know that Truth Social is active, but that's interesting to see that, people go from Dubai. But so what are you working on now for the future? What are your future plans?
Wait to tell you. Yes.
Tell me, please.
Yeah. I had one of my board of directors, members of my board, came to me one day and said, look, it would be really helpful if you expanded your vision, your horizon, to all kinds of Americans, as opposed to focusing on one historical event, which is what I did with this book. But from that historical event, you learn about human nature.
Okay.
And you learn about yourself. Because the Battle of Gettysburg is nothing more than a story of us, of who we are and what we're all about and what we're capable of and what we're not capable of.
Yeah.
And so what I did was, he said to me, he said, why don't you do a series of videos on the American Indian, immigrants from Germany, from Ireland, from China, from all over the world, and focus on a person who represents that particular ethnic group, do a video on that person with life lessons that you can learn from what that person did, so that after a while you have all these different videos of different ethnic groups who make up
the U.S.,
the mosaic called America. And you put that into a classroom, and an American kid can look at the kid across the desk whose parents are from India and say, your ancestors were pretty cool. They were good too,
Yeah.
And he looks back and says, yeah, so were yours, And so now we have something in common. We're Americans. We have something that can unite us. And I look at these videos as a way of uniting us as a people, because we are a mosaic of cultures and beliefs and colors that's just really rich for all of us to take advantage of. And this is the way to do it. So my first video, I'm working on it right now. As a matter of fact, it's a video on Sitting Bull, who was the most famous spiritual leader of the American Indians back in the 1880s. And he was a pretty tough guy. He would not go along with what the government was suggesting that he do, because of these European settlers who were coming into America were basically being told by the government, yeah, you can go on these Indian lands. They won't bother you. Oh, wait a minute. So Sitting Bull was saying, wait a minute, you're prostituting, you're stealing our land, and we depend upon this land for our sustenance. And besides, a lot of our land is sacred ground. You cannot be traveling on sacred ground. Well, the American government decided, okay, let's create a treaty with these people, what they call these savages. And but they broke every single treaty they ever created with the American Indian. And it's a very, very sad history as to what the American government did to these indigenous peoples. They weren't totally innocent either, because, they would kill and massacre these pioneers that were coming across their land without negotiating with them or talking to them. I mean, that went on a lot, but it was just a horrible time. And but that's the way the West was won. I say won, lost, I would say, but the American Indian has been shortchanged more so than any other ethnic group. And I want to create some videos that focus on some famous or not so famous Indians who really did something with their lives in their own communities that can inspire our kids to say, look, I love this story about this woman. What woman? A woman you never heard of before. And she became a doctor. She was impoverished. She came from poverty like you have no idea. But she decided that she wanted to do something with her life, and she became a doctor, and she went and she was offered these big money to stay in these larger cities to continue her practice. And she said, no, I'm going back to where I came from. Wow. You're going to be poor when you get there. I don't care. What I care about are my people. And so it's foreign to us as Americans now to hear American Indians who really like to be referred to as First Nations people, because they were the First Nations here before European settlers got here.
Yeah.
And they like to say for thousands of years they've been here. And what we've done basically is almost wiped them off our map.
Yeah, this is fascinating and very important for the kids to learn that.
Yeah.
So best of luck. So where do people can find your book? On Amazon, on your website? How can they find your videos? Yeah.
Yeah. If they go to my website, the website is American Education Defenders. That's with an S at the end, .com, American Education Defenders. And they can click on the word store at the top of the page. And the first thing that comes up, of course, is a copy of the book. And I will hand sign it for anybody who purchases the book, and it's free shipping. And beneath that, you'll see the ability to subscribe to my videos on a monthly basis. You can cancel at any time. I don't have any contracts. Okay. So if you don't like the first video, just give it up. So
okay. That's so you actually ship the book yourself. That's nice.
Yeah.
So yeah. And any final thoughts or tips you would like to tell the audience before we conclude?
Yes, I would love to. I like to conclude when I give a talk to these clubs that invite me to their meetings. I always like to conclude with a famous quote from a very famous person. And I only divulge the person's name at the end of the quote. It goes like this: it is not, can any of us imagine better, but can we all do better? The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate. to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. And then we shall save our country. Abraham Lincoln.
Wise words.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Paul, for joining me today on my podcast. And best of luck with everything you're doing. And for anyone who's listening or watching, thank you for staying with us. And until we meet again.
Thank you very much for your time and having me on your podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to Read and Write with Natasha. I'm your host, Natasha Tynes. If today's episode inspired you in any way, please take the time to review the podcast. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast with fellow book lovers. Until next time, happy reading, happy writing.